Before you decide your next sunny vacation, you need a Caribbean education. Hi, this is Dawn Kidd with Kid Travel During Vacations, and I would like to take just a few moments of your time to discuss some things that we frequently discuss with clients in helping them select their location. First off, this map right here is a general map of the Caribbean. You'll notice that the Caribbean is placed somewhat southeast of the United States, north of South America, and off the coast of Mexico. While the Bahamas are not technically part of the Caribbean, for this discussion, we are going to include them. They are technically in the Atlantic current, and therefore they really have different water temperatures and even weather. When you're choosing your location for your next vacation, it's important not to go by what somebody else thinks or tells you, because sometimes we know that information doesn't always come across correctly. So you need to make sure that you are making selections for you and not for them. So, for example, topography, the shape of the land. In the Bahamas, they're all made up of coral reef that is sort of poked above the surface of the ocean. Therefore, it's all flat. If you were looking to do zip lining and so forth, you won't find it there. Whereas at the opposite end of the spectrum, St. Lucia is extremely mountainous as it's created by volcanoes. Many of the islands are volcanic or were volcanic in nature, and therefore you will find more of a hilly texture, but certainly St. Lucia probably has the most striking. The weather from location to location is also very different. For example, Aruba is right off the coast of Venezuela, about as far south as you can get, and it lies in the trade winds. That does mean that it very rarely has effects of hurricanes. It is always windy there. So if windy and sandy running, floating around bothers you, you wouldn't like that. It is generally between 80 and 84 every single day. What most people don't realize is that you're not going to see a ton of palm trees. You'll actually see cactuses in Aruba. Whereas in the Dominican Republic, you're going to find more lush, tropical, humid. You'll find those palm trees. The foliage is everywhere. The influences on different islands also give them different characters. While all of the islands do have some influence by the original Taino Indians that were there centuries ago, different European cultures came in and changed things. For example, on Curacao, you see a strong Dutch influence, and you can see that not only in their national language, their dishes, and their architecture. Whereas in Jamaica, they have a much stronger Taino influence, but they also have a strong influence from Spain. And you can actually see that in the picture there from their architecture. The other thing that most people really do not realize is that all-inclusive resorts are much more rare than we think. We see news stories all the time talking about all-inclusive resorts in the US. That's not really true. Dig into them, do your research, and you'll find that most of them might have a food plan, but they're not usually an all-inclusive alcohol or all-inclusive activities. All-inclusive resorts really are a Caribbean thing, but that doesn't include everywhere. So, for example, Mexico, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, which is where Punta Cana is, have tons of all-inclusives. Aruba has a handful. Places like Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, because they are both U.S. territories, have none. I'll take that back. U.S. Virgin Islands has one. I'm not going to recommend it though. But Puerto Rico doesn't have any. You can get a food plan, You can get some drink credits, but it is not truly an all-inclusive. And if you've been to an all-inclusive before, you will be sadly disappointed in what you find. So it's all about making sure your expectations for where you want to spend your vacation are accurate. Let's talk about costs now for a little bit. The price of a vacation around the Caribbean is extremely different. So sometimes we'll get people that say, I want to go to Barbados or Dominican Republic. Well, if you look at this chart, you can see that the price slider there is pretty different. At the bottom of the price chart, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, which is where Punta Cana is, and the Atlantic or the Caribbean side of Mexico. 85% of all of the all-inclusives in the Caribbean are in those three locations. And the reason why is the cost factor. If you look at the US economy in relationship to that country's economy, that is the reason why these are priced lower. For example, in the DR and in Mexico, people working at your resort often are making $20, $25, $30 a day. Whereas in, say, Puerto Rico, they have to follow US minimum wage laws. In other countries, such as Barbados or British Virgin Islands, they're following a different economy. And therefore, in relationship to the US, it's different. So think of it this way. You go to a resort in Mexico, and somebody takes a very powerful crane, picks it up off the beach, drags it across the Caribbean, and drops it, say, in Turks and Caicos or Barbados or Antigua. If that resort was exactly the same, you would be paying a minimum of 2 times the price, maybe more, for the exact same thing. Now, the resorts in Mexico really are not comparable to the ones in Barbados and Antigua, so it's a tough comparison, but I'm sure you get the point. If you're looking for a deal, your locations are Jamaica, DR, Punta Cana, or the Caribbean side of Mexico. You will find hundreds of all-inclusives there. In, for example, Bermuda, there are 0 all-inclusives. Bermuda, there's a little over a dozen. Bahamas, I can almost count them on one hand. So make sure you know where you're looking at, because these places are not all the same. The next issue that people frequently bring up when it comes to selecting a location is that they want to know that it's safe. Well, unfortunately, the word safe really exists on a spectrum, and everybody has a different definition of it. So let's define it through something that we can quantify, that we can count on our fingers, if you want to say. There's a website out there called Travel Safe Abroad. And what they do is they rate locations, not just the Caribbean, across the US, across Europe, and more. And they use actual data. They will rate a place based on petty crime, things like pickpocketing and that sort of thing, violent crime, terrorism, gangs, water safety, safety for women, safety for children, natural disasters. They roll all of this together and make up a safety score for hundreds and hundreds of locations around the world. If you're looking, you will find not only your state here in the US, but you will find plenty of towns there as well. You'll find something you know. So let's go on to the next slide for a second. This is local comparison. What I'd like you to do is find something on here that you know well. And up at the top, there is sort of a color scale. 70 to 85 from the standpoint of a teacher, it's passing. It's not fabulous, but it's doing a decent job. Obviously, if you can get up into that blue purple, you're doing great. The orange range, it's failing or darn close to it. And red, I wouldn't want to go there. So let's take a peek. I'm from New Hampshire. The closest town to me is Exeter. That's middle of the 80s, and I feel perfectly safe here. Maine? Okay, that's a little bit safer. Boston? You've probably been to Boston. You know that you just have to, make sure nobody's going to pick your pocket, that sort of thing. But take a look on the right-hand side. These are a lot of places that people have been to on vacation here in the US. What about Orlando? Have you been to Orlando? By the way, these numbers do change with changes that are going on. So if you look at these numbers tomorrow, they might be slightly different, but they don't change much. So Orlando, 64. Nashville, 58. Las Vegas, 62. Washington, D.C., 58. And yes, that number is current, but it includes all of D.C. So stop and think, what is your tolerance? What number would you still feel safe at? Try to define your range. I would be okay with, maybe 70 to, anything above 70. I can handle myself. That's my personal thought. Now, folks, this is the Caribbean. I call it Caribbean Plus because, of course, Bahamas are in here. You can see that Aruba and Bermuda are doing an amazing job. But remember, there's no all-inclusives in Bermuda, and Aruba's prices are a little bit higher. Take a look, though. Our news lets us believe that Mexico is extremely dangerous, but yet I don't ever hear those kinds of news stories coming out about the Bahamas. Those are news stories. They get paid to get you to click on it, especially if it addresses certain biases that we have. This paper, this screen in front of you, is without bias. It is based on actual crime and natural disaster and water data and scam data. It's based on all of that. Mexico as a whole, yes, it's 58. It's not in the area that I'd want to be in. However, let's pick it apart a little bit. Juarez, I wouldn't go there if you paid me. Sorry. But let's take a look at some of the others. Cancun, it's in the green zone. Cozumel, 82. Isla Mujeres, Puerto Morales, those are darn close to New Hampshire safety. Let's take a look. St. Lucia. Would you guess that St. Lucia was the same level as Cancun? How about St. Kitts? Please forgive me. There are 2 items under Jamaica that should have been colored orange, and I clearly made that mistake. Let's take a look at the Bahamas now. Nassau, 55. Why don't we hear about that in the news? The big deal there is violent crime and petty crime, and obviously natural disasters from hurricanes. Trinidad and Tobago, I don't think I've ever sent anybody there. But boy, a lot of people will say to me, oh, I don't want to go to Mexico. I want to go to the Bahamas because, I don't feel safe in Mexico. Take a look at these numbers here and decide where you would feel comfortable based on facts, not on hype. Hopefully through the course of this video, you have found a couple of things that you have learned so that you can eliminate, if anything else, places that you do not want to go to. Or if you're looking for an all-inclusive, places that won't have what you need. Our job here at Kid Travel is to help you navigate all of this. As life changes, as maybe some of these numbers change, yes, we will help you through this. We will help you decide which locations have what you want for the budget. I hope that this was helpful. Thank you very much. This has been Dawn Kidd with Kid Travel.